So welcome everybody. Does anyone else, everybody has a copy of the agenda as well. So the first order of business, obviously I don't think there's anybody here from the public to make public comments. I think we can move past that. And I don't see anyone participating virtually online, so I think that one person is me. So let's see. Oh, okay. Next order of business is the hello, sir.
Hi there.
Welcome. Is the Belmont Fix-it clinic. This is not anything that necessarily needs a lot of committee's attention, but I have been working with Sustainable Belmont and the Belmont Public Library to launch a Fix-it clinic in town. It's kind of a grassroots movement or grassroots thing that's started up really around the country, a lot out in the Bay Area, and a fair number here in the greater Boston area as well, where people bring in electronics appliances, could be smart phones, could be coffee makers, could be electric toothbrushes, could be other types of electronics, smart TVs, radios, things like that. And there are Fix-it coaches who are there, who are experienced fixing electronics, and they basically tutor and help people learn how to fix their own stuff. Sometimes it's something that can be done in one meeting there on site. Sometimes it's something where it's like, you got to order this part and come back in our next clinic and we'll fix it then. Or, here's how to fix it yourself. We're working with the National Fix-it kind of organization to do one, and it's going to be February 9th, and it's going to be at the Flat Room at the Belmont Public Library. We are looking for some more Fix-it coaches. I think we've got 3 or 4 who have signed up, and I think we'll pick up a few from the Fix-it. Fix-it has a whole spreadsheet of coaches who are in the kind of greater Boston area, all the way up to, I think, to southern New Hampshire and Connecticut, and they'll drive up as well. But if there are folks who are handy with electronics, know how to do some basic engineering, repairing, soldering, what have you.
Don't look this way.
I feel like that's a lost art.
I'm at this
It is. We could really use you. So just maybe follow up with me, and I'll put you in touch with Therese Hammersley at Sustainable Belmont, also the guy at fixit.org.
So this thing on the night, is this an actual clinic?
It is a clinic, yeah. So we're promoting it through the library and it's online. And I think one thing I wanted to ask is, right now it's a Sustainable Belmont joint, but does the committee want to have an official role in it or not? So I mean, I attended one of these just through my own kind of professional interest. I attended one of these in Jamaica Plain, and I've been talking a lot with Massberg and with Kyle Weens, who runs ifixit.org. And he kind of made some introductions for me to these people. So I thought Sustainable Belmont was a good organization to kind of run that, just because there was a really strong environmental commitment to this. Potentially something that ITAC could, put our name on as well, and then at least promote or help them. But I wanted to leave that up to the committee.
What kinds of activities do you imagine that the ITAC would take in coordination with you?
I mean, really, I think it's something that we could sort of lend our name to as just sort of an endorsement from another Belmont committee, and potentially, again, this is a group of people with generally kind of technical and engineering backgrounds, and potentially either this clinic or subsequent clinics, we could lend some engineering talent. I don't know what's going to come out of these, but I mean, there might potentially be stuff that falls under our purview that comes out of them. Generally, it's pretty resident consumer focused.
Yeah.
The JP ones, they even did clothing.
Yeah, and actually ours, we're gonna have
jewelry.
Yeah, we're gonna have somebody there to mend clothes as well. Yeah, do sewing and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a lot of
This is
stuff
really
that
about,
happens.
yeah. And if you talk to like Kyle at Fix-it and this guy, I mean, this is really about sort of countering culture of voice, right? This whole notion of like, oh, it's cheaper to just buy a new one than to fix it, you know? And it's like, well, only if you don't figure in the environmental cost of like throwing all those electronic components into a landfill, like, you know. One at JP, I brought like I had one of those little hand pumps that you used to like pump up like rafts and like old kids' pools and stuff that are broken, like the switch is broken, so we like fixed it there. I know like my in-laws were over at the holidays and were like, oh, you know, my hair dryer broke, so we like threw it out. We're gonna have to go and get another one. And I was like, no, like pull it out of the trash and like bring it to me, and you know we can fix it.
Christmas lights would be a great.
Christmas lights,
Right.
just there's tons of different stuff, you know. So
So who supplies tools, soldering
the
irons?
coaches do. The coaches, yeah,
I
they've
mean,
all
so
got
if you asked if we would be a coach, does that mean we've been responsible for bringing a suite of toolkit?
So it's very much of a share and share alike. So, and if you go to one of these, everyone's always like, hey, you have this or this tool. So if you don't have anything, but expertise, that's probably okay, because there are going to be plenty of people there with big sets of specialized
Good
screwdrivers and soldering
thoughts.
kits and, you know, all the things you would need to do basic electronics repair. So it's not a big issue. If you've got, a really cool set of tools for, screwing, for taking apart and fixing electronics.
Mark your tools.
Is there any website to get a better sense of how these things flow?
Sure. I think it's just
where did you
Fix-it
find-
Clinic is.
Yeah, it says fixitclinic.org.
No, I didn't, no, nothing,
No,
just fix
yeah,
it.
just fixitclinic, all one big word, .org.
How are these sort of, I mean, this sounds like, and I don't mean this facetiously, but, or maybe I do, I'm not sure, but it's sort of an environmental secondhand store, and maybe with the emphasis on the environmental part of it, because your point's well taken that if these things that would normally be considered disposable junk, aren't disposed anymore, they're given sort of a second life. Who's to say if that isn't as good as a lot of other things, the environmental movement.
Well, I know Apple just had a huge earnings warning, and a lot of it was about the trade war with China, but one of the things that Tim Cook did point out in his letter was that people are repairing and holding on to their iPhones longer. They're replacing batteries instead of upgrading. They're fixing broken screens and components. Part of that is probably their pricing model, but I think part of it is also, I don't think any of it's like a cultural movement towards repair. I think it's probably more about the pricing model, but also just like, this is good enough. Like, this is a good, this phone does what it needed to do.
I think there might be a cultural shift towards hacks.
Yeah.
Life hacks,
Yes.
this kind of hacks, and kids are kind of into that. And so if they can hack their phone.
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
replacing the battery.
Yeah.
It's kind of fixing, but we'll call it hack. I think they're just.
Yeah, iFixit and Kyle are very involved in the right to repair movement. Actually, Massachusetts has legislation proposed again this legislative session to try and extend. So actually, Massachusetts is the only state in the union with a right to repair law for automobiles, which basically said if you want to sell a car in Massachusetts, you've got to make diagnostic codes, diagnostic tools, and parts. Actually, not parts. Diagnostic codes and diagnostic tools available to independent repair shops. So you can't, your Toyota, you can't say, oh, if you're not a Toyota licensed repair shop or dealership, you can't, we're not going to tell you what these error codes mean. And by virtue of Massachusetts passing that law in 2012, basically all the automakers except Tesla, which was barely even launched in 2012, said we'll honor that nationwide, because basically they were looking at a situation where many different states had competing right to repair laws they were considering for automobiles. And so now by virtue of Massachusetts passing that, basically every state automakers make diagnostic software, diagnostic codes, and some states require parts. as well, available to independent repair shops and to vehicle owners, right? So some of this is about owners. So they're looking to extend that now to everything else.
I'd say I read the UK was trying to do something similar, that some of the products can't be fixed because they put seams or something over, so
Yeah,
you can't
or
open
glue them, right? So they don't
Glue
screw,
shuts,
they
and now
don't screw
they're
them,
trying
they
to
glue
make it a
them.
law.
Yeah.
You have to open it so you can fix them.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to Kyle about CES.
How does that apply to things where tampering is a concern and?
Like tamper resistant?
Yeah.
That'll be a challenge, huh?
Yeah, like,
There's probably got to be some way to
right,
find an exception for some of those things.
right.
I don't necessarily want somebody to be able to probably open and fix a YubiKey, for example.
That's right. Or on a car like the odometer, right? So
Yeah,
there
right,
things
there
where
are
you
some
don't
things
want,
where you
right.
want people to
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah,
muck around.
but Kyle was saying like at CES, like the whole Bluetooth headphone thing, like that's really great, except all of these things like have non-replaceable batteries, right? So it's like, when you ask them like, oh, well, what happens when the battery runs out? It's like, well, you just gonna use that. It's just like, for $400, and you're throwing this, plastic waste into a landfill, it's gonna be there for 600 or 700 years.
Plus the battery, whatever's in there.
Yeah. So anyway, so Massachusetts is considering right to repair, and so this is also, the Fix-it movement is also obviously very in line with, the sort of larger repair movement, which is more and more electronic stuff. People should be able to service, hack, modify their own stuff. We don't want to criminalize repair. We don't want to criminalize hacking or modding.
Yeah.
Stuff that you bought and owned.
Maybe it's the wrong term to use though, right? In light of what we're suffering from hacker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably has a different
hacking in sort of broader
different,
sense of the word, yeah. But just,
It's an interesting thing, because there are things where you, if somebody mucks with their CPAP machine, is the company liable when it screws up and they?
well, did you read that article about
Yes.
the guy who
Yes.
mods CPAP machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But yeah, liability is an issue, yeah. So I think from what I've understood, this is totally off track.
Yeah, sorry.
So in Massachusetts, there was a right to repair bill proposed last legislative session, never made it out of committee. One of the big hangups was medical devices.
Yeah.
First of all, because medical devices are a huge industry in Massachusetts, employ a lot of people. And the other thing was that issue of liability, not FCC, but FDA compliance and so on. So from what I've heard, the version that they're proposing this year is going to exempt medical devices from it. Just probably as just sort of like let's just take this off the table.
This is a really hard problem.
It's a really hard problem. We know we're going to get tons of resistance within the very kind of influential parties within Massachusetts, and so let's just exempt these and focus on consumer electronics and stuff that's less complicated. Your smartphone screen, you should be able to replace it yourself. So I don't know what the committee's feeling is on it. We're not a sponsor of this clinic as it stands. This is purely a Sustainable Belmont and Belmont Public Library joint. If the committee's open to it, I can talk to Therese and see if we want to jointly sponsor it. But it's sort of the committee. I don't have a strong feeling to it.
Sponsorship doesn't involve
Nope.
monetary considerations.
No funding, no commitment, really just kind of.
I don't think it's different.
Yeah.
Or massive.
Squeeze balls for, meet Belmont.
Yeah, right.
I think there's another theme here which we might want to talk about a little bit, and that is when the town is making IT decisions, purchasing equipment or whatever, are they thinking about whether that equipment is reparable or whether it needs to be replaced? There's also standards for how recyclable a piece of equipment is. Like somebody's going to have to help me out. I can't remember these, but when you dispose of a piece of electronics, what impact does it have? And I'm just completely blanking out.
Green score.
Yeah, look it up.
I think actually the police department, this is going back way in my memory, the police department has a program, I think, where they buy new for certain functions, and that's probably the cruisers that you see on the street. And then when they get to a certain point of use, they're not necessarily thrown away, but they may be used by others in the police department, or for that matter, others in the town. So, I mean, there is, I don't know if that involves, well, it probably does involve continuous repairing of some sort or another. But I don't know what's involved, I don't know how they do it. And I don't know how many new vehicles may be postponed in their purchase because of it. I'm pretty sure it goes on.
But one thing we learned when we were talking with Dave Petto, right? You and I spoke with him about when he end of life desktop machines in the town department. He'll actually offer them up for free for seniors or others who are not who don't have access to computing, and you'll have to run a class where they get to learn some of the basics of IT technology. And part of the takeaway is that they get one of these older machines.
Is there other drives, new drives?
Yeah, I mean, it's all wiped, but the point is that it's one way that these things get recycled. Obviously, it wouldn't be appropriate for things like servers and such, but for more consumer grade machines.
That was an issue for us. In my company, we used to do something similar, getting the machines to people that could make good use of them. And we have a problem doing that now because the machines we get now, they have SSDs that are soldered right to the motherboard.
Mhm.
And we can't wipe them to our satisfaction or to the satisfaction of our customers. So we need to shred the machines. And that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard also like the Surface Pros too, same thing, like, they're almost glued shut, they're not screwed shut, they're a lot of,
So to respond to your original question about whether or not, I'm going to suggest that as interesting as it is, I don't see a compelling reason for it to be ITAC associated. Right? There's a lot of, I think, there's a lot of this which is not necessarily IT focused.
I'm with you.
Right? It's like, I want to fix my blender. Great, that involves a soldering iron and has electronics, but it's nothing IT related.
You're right. Most of this is low tech, not high tech. I don't know if there's some way to support this endeavor without formally being identified with it. Paul, what do you think?
you know what, it's gonna be an ongoing, it's gonna be like God willing, this first iteration goes well, and we're gonna be doing them on a, I don't know, quarterly basis, maybe, I guess probably a quarterly basis. Because Fix-it Clinic tries to sort of balance them regionally, so you're not tapping the same coaches over and over again. So I'm guessing it'd be quarterly or maybe every 4 months or something. And as they go on, there might emerge, the needs might emerge that are aligned with this
sure.
iteration, and
I mean, they may start doing things similar to what Dave Petto was doing, not so much repairing the item, but collecting the item and channeling it to other users.
I can imagine, maybe some town-wide initiatives around e-waste or recycling or reusing, or I have no idea, but potentially that. But often it's, these are, you're right, I mean, some of this stuff is, a lot of it is electronics related, because a lot of our stuff is electronic. That's great, but some of it, I mean, I went to one of JP's, people bring in furniture, and just, my chair broke, and they were fixing that, and clothes, and some guy was trying to put an air conditioner in his window, and fell out, and he grabbed it by the cord, and so, he dropped it. Grab that, it's brand new air conditioner. So, not a super technical problem, but definitely a problem. That's totally fine. I just wanted to throw it out there. Thank you. Okay, so next item is update from our subcommittee on 21st century government, 21st century committees. We actually met just prior to this meeting, and we are in the process of drafting our report to Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Library Board of Trustees, obviously the main audience would be the Selectmen, on the outcome of our 2 surveys. So our committee survey is complete, basically. How many responses we get?
167.
67.
167. I mean
The committee
the
survey.
committee one.
Yeah, 48, I think.
Hang
That's
on,
what I
hang
remember.
on, I got it right here.
By and large, most of the committees that we reached out to responded. And on the public survey, we got around 167 responses. We're hoping to get maybe up to 200 by the time we're all said and done on this. And so
39 responses, that was after our deduplication.
Oh, really? Okay, 39. Okay. Which is, so that was either committee chairs or vice chairs, so it sounds about right. I don't know how many committees there are. And so we're going through our data right now. We're, figuring out what we're gonna, what we're saying. And I'd say, generally, I don't know how I want to characterize ourselves. What do you want to give an interim update on the findings?
I think generally people are pretty positive about increasing the amount of electronically assisted engagement, making it easier, making meetings more accessible. I mean, we're dividing the report into different categories. Like one is accessibility of meetings to the public. Another section is around the meeting logistics,
Planning, scheduling meetings, and so on. Yeah.
Exactly. So some of the committees, I would say that committee survey generally shows that people are more or less happy with how the scheduling and logistics around meetings goes today, but we have some ideas that we want to put in the report anyway that we think might make the meetings more accessible to the public, like shared calendar kinds of things.
Yeah. So we asked questions of the public, how many meetings, public meetings have you attended, in the last year, I think. What meetings, what committees have you, attended? And then in your personal or professional life, have you taken part in an online meeting? Have you used this online scheduling tool or calendaring tool? So those types of things. I mean, I'd say by and large, very strong majorities in the order of 70% or more have used, have participated in an online meeting, have used an online calendaring tool, and similarly are open to committee members participating remotely in a meeting, even debating, deliberating, voting, and obviously equally open, if not more so, to the public being able to participate. Yes.
When you say that 70% participated in online meetings,
Yeah.
are you talking about professional meetings or personal meetings?
I think we gave them a choice of saying, everything from Zoom and Skype to FaceTime, with their grandkids or whatever.
To a formal
Could have been.
online.
Yeah, we didn't ask them to say it was just work or personal. We just wanted to know if they were.
Well, along the same lines, I mean, are they filling these responses out anonymously?
No.
So do you have demographic data on them?
Yes.
Any sort of trends, or is it strikingly different trends based on the demographics?
Well, the median age is 52.
We haven't really analyzed
Okay.
we haven't analyzed the responses by demographic. We have the demographic data, we have the response data, but we haven't, like I said, people 0 to 40 think one way and 41 to 72 think a different way. So that's possibly beyond our data analysis.
Yeah, I don't know what your sample size is either. I mean, you're getting down so small, the results aren't meaningful. But that said, There are certain demographics that, age especially implies certain things. I mean, if you're looking at the 25 to 50 demographic, those are the people who have kids in school. The under 25, probably no kids. People my age, no kids hopefully living in their basement, but there are different needs and there are different perspectives. But I'm sympathetic to the fact that you just may not have enough respondees to do that.
Well, I mean, we're gonna look to get it up maybe to 200 respondees. I mean, this doesn't need to be definitive. I think it just needs to be, let's take the temperature of the public. I think if the sample is skewed in a way, it's skewed towards, because many people who responded were town meeting members. Town clerk sent it out. It is skewed towards people who actually have participated in local government meetings and so on. So it is an informed population, and they certainly know their way around a public meeting, relative to I think if we were to get all, I mean, Belmont's 25,000 people, I don't know how many of those are over 18, but my guess is you're going to see overall much lower rates.
Maybe your demographic is very with town meeting members or other person involved in town affairs. And I bet you're absolutely
that's actually
right.
not a bad idea to break it out that way. Yeah, and I think we can do that. So,
I also think if there's any committee members who are interested in joining the subcommittee for the data analysis part and have an expertise in like data analysis.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be one. I don't know about these guys, but it would be helpful. So, I don't know if anybody qualifies.
Glenn, is that what you do for work?
Not anymore.
As of today.
No, I'm just gonna.
Somebody here.
I'm not a statistician.
And you go time. But yeah, that's a good point, which is if you we can share the survey with the rest of the committee, and if you want to help us dig into the data and slice and
I might be interested. I mean, if you're dealing with basically, high level summary statistics.
Yeah.
I can handle it.
Sure.
Okay.
Is the information available as a spreadsheet?
Yeah, it's a Google. We did use Google Forms, so it's exportable into a
Great. Okay.
Google sheet
Right.
or spreadsheet.
Since you mentioned this town meeting and other town officials versus not, that might be a very valuable breakdown as far as presenting this information to people who are going to make decisions about how much of this online interaction is going to be.
Right. Obviously, the survey that went to committee chairs and vice chairs, like that's, it's a selected population of people who are highly engaged in town business. They've got a senior position on the important town committee. So that's, and then within the resident survey, definitely skewed, there's a high participation rate on town meeting members because we blasted it out to them. We blasted it out in other channels as well, but they responded to the town clerks.
54% were currently a member of an elected or running board.
Right.
So, yeah, we would expect that from where we send it out to.
Well, I'll make a comment here that based on my own experience, you say you've got 167 responses.
There's a couple of duplicates that we haven't gone through and deduped it yet.
On the order of.
That 40
For a voluntary participation in a survey of this kind, that's very good.
Yeah. So we think so.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that many.
Yeah.
How many did you send it out to?
Well, we didn't. I mean, we sent it to, we had the town clerk send a link to town meeting members, and then I pushed it out through social media to Belmont on Facebook, to Belmont Parents Group, to What's Happening in Belmont, to a couple of the other, I think school-related groups. I posted it to the Yahoo Belmont group.
And you said it was about 50%, right, that were elected?
Yes.
So that means about half of that group, so call it 80, right, are in some sort of official capacity in the town. Town meeting is what, about 320 some odd people?
No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, well, it's eight
Eight
precincts,
precincts and then-
24, no, 36 per precinct, right?
No, 39.
It's 12 per.
Isn't it 13,
I think
13
it's 36.
or is it 12 per?
It's 12 per
okay,
year,
so like
3 years
36
or-
times.
But it's bumping up against 300.
So, you know, again, 80 by 300, then you're looking at whatever ratio that is, right? It's under a third elected. But then that also means that about the other half are from non-elected, right? Yeah. So it's not bad.
And we'll do a little, we're gonna do another push just to.
You probably put it out to about 1,000 people.
Yeah.
About that,
Something like that.
yeah, 16, 17% response, that's pretty good. I agree with Dan. Yeah, pretty good.
So, you know, I mean, I'd say high level, what we're gonna get, and, you know, some of the main questions we were looking to answer was really around things like remote participation, use of technology to streamline some of the processes around both scheduling and publicizing what's going on within different committees. And so my guess is, you know, that the report that we produce is going to show that there's, you know, a lot of public support for measures like that. And, you know, I would assume that the selectmen will look at that and make a decision.
So I heard scheduling, I heard remote participation in meetings. Is there a third potential, you know, in scheduling being like, you know, make it more efficient with, you know, certain types of shared technologies rather than, you know, emails, for example. Right. Is there a third thing that
Sharing documents.
document sharing?
Yeah.
It's making the contents of meetings, the documents that you work with and so on available.
Collaborative.
Even just how, you know, if you've attended a meeting, like how, you know, a lot of the questions we asked were, you know, did you have access to the documents that were going to be discussed, you know, prior to the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting? How did you get access to them? You know? If you're on a committee, you know, how much of what you discuss and how many documents you review do you make available for the public afterwards and how? Right. So it's really just about both the meeting itself and then the output of the meeting and, and how available that is to the public.
One thing that was surprising to me was that committee members didn't really feel like they had any problems scheduling. And I think most of them were, you know, hey, this is a regular meeting, that regular standing meeting. We just, you know, we say it's such and such time and it's scheduled a year out and people just come. Yeah. So that's different from us.
There's also an interesting mathematical property with the size of a meeting and its quorum. Right?
Yes.
A very small meeting is easy to arrange. If you have a medium-sized meeting, getting quorum and getting enough people there is very difficult. If you have a very large meeting, then, you know, the probability distribution of people being able to attend starts to work out in your favor.
Large
So
numbers.
it's the worst size of the committee for scheduling.
Yeah.
That's
What we have right here, yeah, somewhere between small and large.
No, it's right. It's hard to schedule.
Although if I recall, I think some of the people who responded were warrant committee members, had said that scheduling was an issue with them.
Oh, is that right?
I mean, again, like
Yeah, they
school
have ad
committee, you know, board of selectmen, they set all their meetings for the year on one day. And it's just, that's a lot of it. But committees like ours, where it's a little bit more fluid, or they're doing more interim meetings and subcommittee meetings and so on, so you have more of a sense of like, it can be a hassle and there's a lot of inefficiency in it.
The other thing was just on communicating the meetings that are going on to the public, maybe a little more modern way, like through the website in a easy to consume format, or even like we talked about the whiteboard that they have out in the hallway out here. There's not really any reason that there shouldn't be digital signage that somebody in the clerk's office, you know, hooks into their system and it displays what the meetings are that day automatically.
Well, it's there, maybe forever.
right? I think that would seem to be kind of a theme that the responses were kind of leading us towards electronic signage and more.
Really low levels of social media utilization. When we asked them on the committee survey, how do you notify the public about your meeting? It was like, we send the agenda to the town clerk and it was a website. It was like, no social media, how do you communicate with people? Social media was, single digit percentage. And it's 2018. So it's like, dude, this is how everybody, certainly everybody of a certain age is communicating. Like, not about, ads and this apparel. Got a picture of the fish. Some of that stuff, of course, it's not an either or thing, but it's the same. Like, when you look at that compared to how do you know how information is consumed and disseminated online, there's a real disjunction.
I think it's a question of perception. We are more digitally involved than average people of our age, perhaps. There's also a question of modality. I'm on the computer all day, but when I'm thinking about, okay, what's going on in Belmont, I don't think about looking on the Facebook group, even though I'm on that group. Because I can look in that group and I think, there's not that many people out in this community.
And social media has that name for a reason. It may be legacy, but it's social. So I very much separate my business world from my social world. I would never think of doing anything business oriented on Facebook. I really do social stuff on Facebook.
These aren't binary choices, right? So it's not like we shall communicate via the Citizen Herald and the town's website and sort of in a poll mode. So people want to know, they can come and find out. But we shall not push to them via social media, Nextdoor, Facebook, what have you, email newsletters or whatever. You can do both, right? So you continue to communicate on those modes. Because the problem is there are so many people in town who are probably in that sub 40 age group, and they're very much getting their information about what's going on from Belmont Parents Facebook group or listserv or some post on Nextdoor. This is how they experience that. Guaranteed.
Is that your perception, or you have survey data to back it up?
Well, it wasn't part of this. Well, actually, I'm not sure if our.
We asked the question about social media, but
Yeah.
I don't know how, we didn't ask about particular. Right? Do you look at Facebook? Do you look at Twitter?
No, we didn't break it out by platform. Yeah. And again, median age of the survey respondents for the resident survey is 52. So, arguably we're not hitting that group even in our survey population. So I can tell you, so yes, I can tell you anecdotally that there's a lot of people who are engaging and finding out about things that are going on in town via social media platforms. And who look for information, who are consuming information, both local and otherwise, via social media platforms. It's true. And I said there's somebody whose job is in publishing and media.
It's also kind of fragmented. You only have, if you want to find out what's going on, from the paper, you don't have that many choices you have to worry about. But my kids, they have to be on this thing for Facebook, for this, this group uses Facebook, and that group uses Instagram, and there's probably somebody out there using Slack for something, and I don't know what else, other things I don't even know about. And it's fragmented all over the place.
Right. Well, from the town's perspective too, you don't want to make the mistake of investing in a platform that then might change on you, go under, or so on. So right. So it's not a question of, clearly the town needs to own its own platform and manage its own platform. I guess the question is, as we look to connect with our residents, you got to fish where the fish are. You got to go to where people are congregating.
I remember a couple of years ago, there was, I think think there was a presentation here about the high school was setting up some sort of social media thing so that the athletic teams could disseminate information. And I think that's been completely abandoned at this point. I think everybody uses Facebook for everything in the high school. Which, totally in favor
Or
of.
Instagram, I mean, which
Yeah.
is basically Facebook, so, yeah. I mean, yeah,
You know, when my daughter joined the sports team, they said, okay, we're gonna announce all the schedules, and, you know, on Facebook. And I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You have to get our Facebook account? You know?
Yeah.
Still young for that, right?
Nice.
so,
Has a Facebook account either.
So what's, if I may ask, what's your timeline for producing a report?
I'd say we're a little behind, but I think we're probably gonna, we need to schedule our next meeting, but I'm gonna say it's, maybe try and do another one in January and hope to have a rough, of the report by then that we could maybe share with the committee, and so hoping for, I don't know.
Because,
end of
you know,
February.
if I suggest that you can, or we consider working backwards, right? From your recommendations, you may actually have some outcomes that you want to drive, right? The big one I keep thinking about is, you know, remote participation, since it seems to be such a little niggler, but at the same time, we've done some other experimentation outside of your subcommittee work that sort of reinforce this idea of remote participation, right? IT recordings. And, you know, meeting out, there are all these little activities that we've done that have been reinforcing this one theme of like more modern technology being used in the committee setting. And if you can back that up with a survey, from what we gather from open meeting law, there is, I think it's, if my understanding is correct, this is selectmen's discretion to, you know, put forward some sort of a rule about whether or not remote participation is possible, right? And we're coming up into a legislative session, right, meeting in the May timeframe when bylaws are usually proposed and passed by town meeting, right? So if this is something that we think is important enough to raise to their level to move forward on, right, then we probably have to, you know, start informing them in the March-April timeframe, which means these reports would have to be complete by the, you know, January-February timeframe, so that we could actually push it out and actually enact a change in a reasonable time.
So is it necessary that there is town ordinance?
I don't know. So,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
if there is, then that would be.
It's a good
I don't think,
question.
on the remote participation, I'm almost positive that it doesn't require town meeting approval. I think the selectmen can make that decision on their own. Without town meeting. But as Glenn said, there may, as we as a committee look at this report and come to some consensus on our recommendations and conclusions, there certainly could be things that are at a level above that. Where it would require a bylaw change or some, guidance on, we might think about changing this bylaw, that bylaw, that would then need to,
And you think it can be done, I'll say unilaterally at the town bylaw level? Or does some of these issues, transcend that and actually need to be addressed at the state level with the open meeting laws?
I don't think we've researched that, honestly.
I don't think,
I don't think we
I don't know if we're
have.
gonna get to anything that would require, a rethink of the open meeting laws. I mean, I think that the biggest change would maybe be, I have no idea, I mean, this is all hypothetical, would be, town bylaw review committee might want to take a look at something and then make a recommendation to town meeting. But I can't even think of anything that would rise to that level as we sit here now, so. I mean, speaking editorially, I think there are changes do need to be made to the open meeting law, clearly, but that's, well beyond the purview of this. This is more focused really on the transparency, remote participation, leveraging 21st century platforms to engage with the community. And
Which all makes, a ton of sense.
Makes a ton of sense, yeah.
And, and I'm just afraid that there's something there in the open meeting laws that the way they're drafted, they weren't drafted in anticipation of any of this technology. And therefore, there may be things at the statute level that would be a showstopper.
It is a thorny area, and my guess is many of these recommendations are going to, somebody's going to throw a flag up and say, well, we can't do that because of OML, we can't do that because of OML. And I think then the conversation is, Then I think that the committee can get involved with the stakeholders, whether that's the town clerk and town council and the board of selectmen, and really work through these things and say, well, hold on, is this really a limitation? Does the OML prohibit, recommendation X, Y, or Z from going into effect? But is it something we want to push on and say, well, show me,
I think with respect to, unless we change the direction, but with respect to the things we surveyed, I don't think we're going to run up against that. I attended the town council's thing last summer, last fall, something like that. There are a lot of things that we think we would like to do that maybe we would have even thought about including in this, such as working on a document outside of the meetings collaboratively. That's considered a deliberation. So we're not pushing on that. We're leaving it to just the document's final. Can you make it more easy to present it to people before the meeting so that they can come into the meeting prepared? Which we think is not a controversial thing.
Right.
I think it depends on the manner in which you do that, right? I mean, if it's electronic distribution to meeting members or committee members, that would probably be a violation, I think, of open meeting laws. If then somehow you can post the meeting agenda and say with a link to the document.
Yes, that's what we're talking. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
You're right. Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons things are slow is that we, have been told in essence that, we need to kind of work on this in session, basically.
Yeah.
If we're divvying up the document now, but we really need to work on it separately as individuals and then bring the pieces together in session and open meeting, because they've concluded that collaboration tools like Google Docs are violations of OML, and that committees shall not collaborate online.
Yeah.
Which, from the perspective of a $160 million a year nonprofit organization, is a pretty big impediment. But
I was also at that meeting, and because of some recent trial outcomes and some precedents that were set, they're very conservative in their advice. The open meeting laws are very difficult to map to the technology we have available to us today.
there's 70s laws.
But they don't take any unnecessary chances. If we really want to address this, then the place to do this is the State House. Because it's not a Belmont law, this is a state law.
No, there were, I talked to Senator Brownsburg about this. He's pretty much like that. Laws need to be reformed, they need to be updated. But I don't think it's a priority right now. So I think we got bigger fish to fry.
Well, they the squeaky wheel and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't, as Dave said, I don't think many of the things that we're probably pointing towards in terms of conclusions would run afoul of OML in terms of
Improving calendaring and stuff like
calendaring,
that.
making documents
I think it's
available
not
online and so on. It's all pretty uncontroversial.
I still think the remote participation is the big one, right? And that is something that can be locally approved, right? So I'm looking at an FAQ on the Masco site. An adopting authority such as the Board of Selectmen in a town may decide to adopt the practice of remote participation and place restrictions on its use.
What does it mean to adopt?
Well, exactly, but that's the point. We don't have any adoption right now.
Yeah, right.
And so, imagine based on your survey, based on some of our technology recommendations, you could provide what those guidelines might be, right? Because the whole idea of open meeting law, right, at a very macro level, is to avoid the semblance or the actual use of private communications, right, in a public body. Right? And so there's even comments in here around is it okay to use social media? Well, if you're using social media during a meeting, right, and the answer is no, if the people in the meeting don't have access to that social media, right, because then that can be a private form of communication.
That's right. Yeah, we're DMing each other, across the table.
Right. Don't vote that way. Right.
Right. Building in the essence of liberty. Yeah, so, and then, of course, even if the selectmen were to approve it and say, well, we're going to allow remote participation by the public, and we're going to allow remote deliberation by committee members, that doesn't necessarily mean, that doesn't compel any committee to do that. It then falls to the committee chair and the committee itself to elect to take advantage of that option. So it's not like once they give the green light for that, every committee is going to have one of these setups, and maybe up to the committees themselves if they want to do that.
You finished your data collection, right? There's no more data collection to go on.
Well,
we're gonna leave the public survey open for a little bit longer and try to add one more.
Let me explain where I'm going with this. Okay, I'm sort of pivoting off of what Glenn suggested. If your data analysis is mostly done, there may not be a need to produce a final report on all issues. You might want to consider producing the conclusions as they apply to certain things that we want to try to get through the process this spring, and then just sort of put on the back burner, perhaps reporting on other issues. I don't know if that seems feasible to you at this point in time, given your sample size.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that could be an immediate goal that we can all approve here, and you can present it.
So a pretty focused report around a couple really salient issues from the survey. And
I want to use the word initial in its best sense, an initial report on those particular issues, but not a final report.
Yeah, that's good. I think we could probably do that. Other questions for 21st Century Government Subcommittee? Anything else, gentlemen? No? Okay.
Sure. So the other subcommittee, whose name will be long to say. So we met December 13th. One of the things that we focused on was creating a report for this committee, basically outlining and summarizing what we as a committee have done over the last 12 to 18 months. So Cheryl had provided the draft. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join the meeting, but that draft was then edited within the group during our meeting. I was a little nervous because I couldn't find the draft prior to this meeting, and then discovered it was actually appended to the meeting minutes. So I have them. I have not, accepted all the changes and edits and such, so it's not formally available to this committee today. So I apologize, I don't have it to pronounce and share. But what I will do is clean this up, and then I will send it to Dave so it can be included in the minutes as an attachment. It was formally approved by the quorum of committee members who were present at our December 13th meeting. So that was one of the outcomes of our most recent meeting. The other thing is that we, as a group, were thinking about other project ideas, if you will, topics that we wanted to pursue. And I know we had talked about the tech talks or the fireside chats as being a successful format over the last 12 to 18 months. We were not bounding ourselves to that. Right? So we may use that format again, but we were more focused on what are some of the topics that we'd like to cover, and then think about what might be an appropriate format for those topics. Right? The top three that came out of our conversation was around screen time and social/physical health. Right? So the big topic, especially between older and younger device users. There's a lot of interest and sort of lack of knowledge, I guess, around blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So we thought that could be a very interesting one to a broad audience. And then the third one, again, given that we are focused on technology, cybersecurity, and public health, we wanted to look into driverless cars.
Okay. Could you describe the first one again?
Screen time and social or physical health. And it's interesting, you know, for those of you who are iPhone users, you know, the latest iOS update includes a like weekly summary of what your average screen time use was. Which I think is
Google recently added that, and I just got a Pixel 3, and that was one of the new things.
okay. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, I'm sure, you know, there was a reason they included that, right, in their software, and then there's probably going to be, you know, discussion and statistics and whatnot coming from that too. So that could be a very interesting topic for all the reasons that you can imagine.
I think it seems intriguing also because with as many health professionals as there are in the Boston area, it seems like you should be able to get a good speaker on that topic too.
Yeah, I think for any of these, there's probably lots of opportunities. Right?
Yeah.
And is
If
it?
I can find the name, we actually had someone come and work about a month and a half ago to talk about this. I think she may have originated in Virginia, but I'll see if I can find the name for you.
That'd be great. And Dave, was it you who suggested or mentioned a speaker about elections?
That's me.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Because I did see that video and it was great. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Yeah, and then
From
blockchain.
Paul Original, who the speaker on the digital elections that was in the newsletter.
And blockchain, obviously, there's been a lot of financial hype, you know, over the last 9 to 12 months. But also, it's so much more than just this application of cryptocurrencies. A lot of people who are very unfamiliar with that. Right? And the driverless cars, we were thinking, you know, rather than have a talk, what if we actually got someone who has a vehicle, or, you know, I was at an event in Boston about a year ago where they had a number of local companies with their driverless cars. And, you know, these were small vehicles just decked out with sensors all over, right? But it would be interesting to see what kind of research is being done. I have another friend who is very involved with, I guess, the legislation around it, or at least he's been very familiar with it. You know, and in his, you know, anecdotal evidence is like it's not coming soon because there's so many rules and regulations that haven't been looked at yet. But again, it'd be interesting to explore that. And you know, it could be something beyond just a talk. It could be, you know, more.
What about like a smart city, smart town presentation where you tackled or looked at some, you know, innovative things that, you know, communities are doing, whether cities or localities are doing?
Yeah, I don't remember us considering that. I'm certainly happy to put it on the list.
Did we go into the New England automotive show this week?
No.
Okay. We're planning on it, but I don't know, sort of half curious. But I figure if there's going to be any autonomous vehicle people in town this weekend, they're probably going to be down there showing stuff. Right?
Yeah, where is this?
I want to say it's at the World Trade Center, but I'm not certain. But in the city district. Right? I don't know, Google for the New England Automotive Expo or something like that. Okay. You'll find it. I think it starts on, I might start tomorrow and go through the 17th, I think. Something like that.
Long time.
Yeah, I may, that's right. I don't know, I'll do the right.
And CBS was this week, and there's a lot of smart car and autonomous vehicle stuff going on out there. They have a whole car expo.
That's at the convention center.
Oh, you got it? Go ahead.
It's at the convention center.
Yeah, Boston Convention Center.
Awesome, which is up in Seaport. Yeah, it's up behind.
If you do something with an autonomous, sorry.
I was saying, yeah, he's correct, not Heinz, the one in Seaport.
There's also maybe a possibility of doing something in conjunction with Belmont Drives Electric.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because there are a bunch of people who are super knowledgeable about car technology who are in that group.
And they had a little expo of electronic vehicles.
Right. And they have incentives, and you know, they're trying to get most to buy, right? So, you know, you can imagine this being not just driverless cars, but perhaps like electric cars and emissionless cars and things like that. So,
Yeah,
I think
a lot of interesting stuff happening.
right. There's a lot of really neat topics, right? There's no lack of topics, right?
Yeah,
And these
it's
seem
great.
like some of the most interesting. And from the spots I'm getting today, it seems like there would be agreement to that.
Yeah, and you get a lot of turnout too. People are fascinated by cars, and I know those Belmont Drives Electric events are always really well attended.
Yeah.
You know, So my guess is there'll be a good turnout for something on future of automobiles and autonomous driving.
So, you know, again, in the spirit of mixing things up, right, we also thought about, well, we've done all of our sessions in conjunction with the library, great partner, but would it be good to maybe, you know, consider working with the Beach Street Center, for example, or having a format more like a tech fair, or even as we're talking, like with the cars, imagine, you know, a town day where you got your old cars, and then you have your new cars in the other lot, right?
I love
Something like
that.
that.
Yeah.
It could be hands-on sessions, right? So certain types of things we had considered that didn't make the short list might have been lending itself to more of a like try it out, do it yourself kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then some of the questions we thought would be, you know, very easy for us to focus on are things like, you know, how do these technologies or devices or whatever work? Like, you know, cryptocurrencies, a lot of unknowns about them, right? Like, let's just talk to it in basic layman terms. What are the benefits? What are the risks? Right? So very simple
Teach
messages.
people how to pay the ransom.
Yeah, and for example, like with, I know with smart city, smart town stuff, there was actually just an article, it was in the Times, talking about how a lot of cities, sort of Rust Belt cities, are looking to smart city, smart town initiatives to try and both attract people to move there and businesses to set up there, you know, kind of trying to leapfrog ahead of the coasts. But one of the issues raised in the article was, you know, are they weighing the security, privacy aspects of these programs that they're rolling out, many of which involve sensors, cameras, you know, surveillance of various sorts, as they're doing it. So they're kind of setting themselves up as test labs, but it's not clear that they're getting the consent of their residents to be subjects of the lab, the study. So there are a lot of really interesting civil liberties and privacy issues that come up around stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's it. So the next time we are meeting as a committee is the very end of January.
Okay. Very cool. So do we think, I guess, Glenn, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, this is a side conversation. I'll talk to Glenn afterwards, but.
Do we want to have a published calendar of these fireside chats that we could, or settle on dates and topics and then maybe set them up as Facebook events and have a shared calendar where we can just start to get them up there early and promote them and that type of thing? I know we.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll talk about at our next meeting.
Yeah.
What the
It's hard
time
enough
is.
to plan one without trying to plan three at the same time, but maybe we can see if.
Even if you're just planting a flag and being like, let's just pick this as
This
the
month.
date, and generally this is the topic. And if we don't know who's speaking, yeah.
That's what we've done in the past, but we usually wait until a month or two ahead of time to see, okay, so what else is on the calendar for the town?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to, schedule something for a day that
Yeah.
there's an election in the library or something like that.
Yeah, that is a concern.
Also, I wonder, just kind of thinking out loud, whether some of these talks that you all are organizing are things that might be of interest in adjacent communities, and there might be either broader potential constituency for some of these things.
The very good point, Wild Watertown.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the fires say free to the public, you don't have to be a resident, but we're not promoting it in any channel.
Right.
Yeah, we stopped checking IDs.
That's what anyway.
You gotta be 52 or over. Actually, most people pass that.
Most of the things that we use for publicity are Belmont centric, but the one thing that's not, the next door groups, I just blast out to anybody within a few miles, basically. I don't know if that reaches it.
I don't know how to do this, but if we came up with something that was really sort of had widespread interest, there's probably a way to get the Boston Globe to say something about it, in the appropriate place.
I mean, the other thing would be, do we want to, I know that the town allows you to sign up for email updates, but that's mostly like just notifications about committee and subcommittee.
Yeah, I've used some of those now. They just basically say subcommittee posted something, right? They don't provide content. You've got to follow a few links to actually get to the content.
So I guess one question is, do we want to,
That's what your committee's supposed to fix.
yes. One step at a time.
Subcommittee.
One step at a time. You know, I mean, honestly, yeah, I mean, the website is sort of, that's a whole, it's another, that's maybe 2019. Where we sort of drag it to be there. I mean, one idea would be to have some kind of a email list, not email newsletter, but email list that we as a committee maintain that would allow us to do richer, more, you know, informative outreach than, oh, this committee just posted a PDF on the website, you know, and to start pushing out notifications, you know, allow people to subscribe to it and then push out communications to them.
Yeah, but then you're signing up for very regular content.
Isn't that just the ITAC public list on the school mailing list server? I mean, they've clearly got subscribers beyond just the
The
committee.
ITAC public list on the school mail server.
Right, that's the one I send the minutes to along with the town clerk.
Right.
I have no idea how to check the membership of it, but I've gotten email people sending me queries on occasion. So there are people who subscribe to it.
Yeah.
John Bo.
He probably still is on it, but
We're gonna have to have a John Bo drinking game where every time John Bo's name comes up,
he was subscribed to that before he joined the committee.
I think we can take it away to our subcommittee and think more and then come back to a session.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is, if we're going so far as to curate a series of presentations and talks for the members, for the community, and we foresee doing this in the long term and having a more, you know, kind of full-throated, you know, offerings or fully fleshed out offerings of programs, whether that's talks or participation in, you know, initiatives that other groups within town are doing. And people are interested, right? Like people are like, oh, I'm really interested in tech issues in Belmont. And I know ITAC is kind of where a lot of these sort of clearinghouse for some of these things. I'm gonna sign up for their email, list. Doesn't mean we have to send them a weekly email or even a monthly one. It just means we can push stuff out in a way that is kind of more informative. That's all I would say. But it's something we're thinking about and not merely saying, well, you know, these are the options, these are the two options that we have for communicating with people based on the town clerk. And,
Yeah, I mean, you could do things like at the events, just, you know, let people know they can subscribe to our ITAC email list for notification about future things.
Yeah.
And they could snowball.
I mean, MailChimp lets you have a free account up to whatever it is, 500 subscribers.
Right, but I think the point is that we have a list for interested parties,
Mhm.
and it may not, you know, why don't we stick with that? And go.
I will say I did set up an ITAC page on Facebook for the group. So if we want to do something like that, it would be very easy to just add a button to that and say, oh, if you want to subscribe.
Yeah.
So first of all, everybody like the ITAC page on Facebook. I've basically just been posting the Zoom links and notices around meetings to it, but there's obviously a lot of opportunities for other content that we want to do. And if we wanted to do an email sign up. Okay, cool.
Jog the memory. A couple of weeks ago, there was a posting to the Belmont Facebook page about people complaining about the garbage situation. Namely, that they had more garbage than they could fit in their bin.
Oh, it's a huge problem. Totally not in our purview as a committee. Unless it's the little bin that you get on your computer.
Well, no, with smart city,
Yeah.
Wait, so-
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
What
what
do
jobs you remember and how this related? Yeah.
It's good job, buddy. It's fun.
It's a tough audience.
Wait for you to catch up here.
Okay.
Bring it around for us.
So there was a proposal to create a matchmaking service where people who had plenty of space in their
That is the best idea.
Wow.
could sign up and say, I have space. in
I think we should hook them up with sustainable Belmont so that everyone just reduces their stand over.
That
There
is
should be a
so
market for
good.
this.
It's like Uber for, for trash.
I can see these people flying around town with their weight bags.
It's a huge, well, like, and I don't know,
So you have to, it has to be done just right. You don't want to say, you don't want to match someone, in Harvard lawn with somebody up on the hill. You want to say, okay, so who's close to you?
My next.
We can model it.
It's like
It's just carbon offsets.
this agreement, so bring it out to the point, if anybody's
I know
business
some
is,
not
can't close,
volunteer to write.
we're all free to.
Really?
But only
Okay,
if they
so
got,
that's what if there's
We
room.
have the system.
Extra trash.
no, only if they got enough people to say, yeah, I would use this. And so far they've gotten 3.
where is this? Where are you seeing this?
This is on the Belmont page.
Oh, on the Belmont
Facebook.
Facebook.
Facebook page?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to check that out. I think it's a great idea.
Right.
Last
I don't remember seeing that on the
It's like-
page. I'm
it's
sure-
like
I'm sure
trash
I did.
sharing.
But I was
It's
just
trash
thinking,
sharing.
Jim, my 2 next door neighbors and the neighbors across the street, we figured this out like
I would say we do it.
within the first couple of weeks.
Technology.
Did you?
I'm not saying that technology is the only way to solve the
Yeah.
problem,
With it,
but
when they first week, beginning of October, when they said they were gonna not take it if you were
Yeah.
overloaded.
Yeah.
My neighbor had my next door neighbor had just had a party and they had too much. We had almost nothing. So my wife said, hey, just throw some of your extras in ours.
Yeah.
And the other neighbor happened to overhear it and we said, yeah, why don't we just, amongst ourselves,
It's an informal social network.
if you need a little extra room and ours has room, throw some stuff in it. Don't make it so that they didn't take ours.
I see like a map with like little icons of like half-filled cans and quarter-filled cans.
Instrumentation on the cans.
And like GPS, like mapping out who's the
You
closest.
seem far too excited about this, Paul. Can we just
Oh,
stop?
I think it's a great idea. Well, because
Overload
I don't know if you read, but like they had the cardboard drop off at the DPW, I think on the 5th, and they were completely overwhelmed to the point where they're now having an extra one tomorrow, and they've ordered like 3 huge, tomorrow 9 to 12. Oh, no, sorry, Saturday.
Saturday.
Saturday 9 to 12. Didn't want to hear you. And
Hard show for you.
because, and I totally understand why, because I have like 10 huge cardboard boxes in my garage that are too big to fit in the recycling, because then I can't put any of our recycling in it. And then I don't want to throw out.
Yeah.
Huh?
Now you had my son go out with a knife and cut up all our cardboard and it's a lot more in there.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I always cut them down for that reason.
But even then, it's like already our recycling is probably like 2/3.
So,
If you,
bring Paul box cutters.
All right. Box cutter. I gotta break down a cardboard box. What are you talking about?
Fix-it clinic. Show how to use box cutters.
Way too much fun for the IT committee.
But I think that's an amazing idea, and I love it.
Well,
Well,
it may kind of
sometimes
filter
you
out
can
some of our-
purchase another bit.
It may kind of filter out because the first few postings in this thread were all this, ranting about what's wrong with civilization, why don't we give us enough garbage bins? And then finally,
Well, the problem is that they've set up, with this if you're overflowing, we won't pick you up. It's like a punishment that actually exacerbates the problem rather than relieves it. Because like, okay, so you don't pick up my recycling or my trash because the lid was jarred. Now I'm stuck with this trash for another week, during which I'm going to accumulate more trash and recycling, and it's only make the problem worse. So it's like, at some point, it's sort of like, listen, help me solve this. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to recycle. Help me solve the problem. because kind of use the punitive measure.
So the basic system is not very complicated, figuring out, there's lots of resources to figure out. You've got this bunch of routes that you want to do, and there's hills and there's distance, and you don't want to pull the thing, up a flight of stairs or something. You can figure out how far you need to go, what the best match is. But there's also a lot of security issues involved with this, because you don't want somebody like signing someone else's garbage bin up.
Yes.
Just as a prank, or
Yes.
I think everyone on my street seems to think that they can just throw their dog poop in my bin. It's kind of how I have.
I have 2 dogs, and I'm tempted to do it, but I'm always very like, man, this is not cool. Like, you can't just throw dog food.
Just throw the garbage on the recycle bin.
Even that, it's like, it's poop, like, put it in your own.
Okay, so we're almost.
Second the motion.
Thank
We're at 9 o'clock.
Okay,
We got one more quick
So I'm
topic.
interested in working on this.
I think that's such a good idea. Okay, are we done, technology,
Yeah.
cybersecurity?
We've done for a
That
while.
was a public health issue, wasn't it, that last one?
So, yeah, like I said, not for reviews.
Big area ideas for 2019.
Fireside chats and tech talks, we pretty much
Good.
covered that. Municipal broadband, I guess we had a really great presentation
We did.
on that. I guess the question for the committee is what's our role following up with that? I know obviously we're not spearheading that, but what do we see as our role going forward as this idea, I guess?
We kind of asked the presenter that, right?
Yeah.
I can't recall exactly the outcome of.
I think I maybe brought it up. I think it was inconclusive what we could do.
Right.
And what, I mean, he was just trying to get buy-in. I think he wanted to
Yeah,
drum up
it's more informational.
for the idea, but, we really can't influence it much.
Right.
Well, I guess I missed this meeting, so he or she is trying to sell
He.
something.
Right.
We should be looking at it from the other perspective of, are there any reasons why this is a bad idea?
Right. I think we were trying to poke at it, honestly, during the meeting. And I think, I don't know, I was skeptical at first, but, at the end of the day, it's another option. It enhances net neutrality. There were quite a number of positives for it, and I think in general, I mean, I left the meeting, I just entered the presentation skeptical and left it quite positive about what the plans were for it. So, I feel like it's probably, he was at the beginning of his thinking about, how he's going to approach this. He'd seen it done in other towns. And
Well, he's done it in Concord. He started.
Right, exactly. That I was going to do now.
So I think he's just
I think
kind
he
of
was
testing the
there,
waters
Right.
with our committee and other groups,
Yeah.
so probably
So you can
track it, but
travel.
I'm not sure he wanted us to do anything active at this point in time.
I was going to suggest that maybe we can update, right? Well, where are you? Are you running into any roadblocks? What are they? And can we help, right?
I mean, one thing we could do as a committee would be, we've been briefed on this. We did record that meeting, so if you want to go back and listen to the whole presentation, you can. One thing would be, do we want to put out a, position paper that reflects the consensus of the committee where we reflect on what he told us, weigh the pros and cons, and forward that along to the selectmen and just say, just FYI, we've been briefed on this, we put together a one-pager, and here's kind of where we are.
Is there any kind of access control for this network, or?
It's an open exchange, basically. I mean, you go to and then there's different access points that they would have. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just another ISP. So another.
It'd be like a town-owned ISP.
Right.
Yeah. So that's based in fiber.
Right.
So you weren't were there others who weren't at that? You weren't. So maybe it is useful just to summarize some of the key points, right? So Chris Roy is the new general manager of the Belmont Light Department. Right. And he came and spoke at his request, really. Right. He had offered to come and speak to us. Gave a presentation. He formerly was of the Concord Light Department. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Made a few points. One being, there's relatively few, or it's a minority certainly, of municipalities in Massachusetts that own their own utility department. Right. Pro town ownership because here's the point about why there is benefit to that, right? Versus what's it called, like shareholder or something, right? They're like utilities that are shareholder owned, right? Like
The
natural
customers are more important than the shareholders.
right? By definition, municipalities are nonprofits, right? So they're not there to earn a profit for their shareholders. It's much more about serving their communities. And so he proposed that, or just described what they did in Concord, where they did install fiber. He describes some challenges which are not necessarily so relevant here, meaning that Concord was actually large geographically. Some of that last mile was hard, right? Where you've got houses that require a high cost to put onto the network. They also priced it so that it wouldn't have been everyone who wants to sign up right away, because there was some premium to it. There was some investment that had to go in and had to go in a staged way. So using that kind of model, you could do something similar in Belmont. Belmont's also, I think, different than Concord in that we do have both Verizon and Comcast, whereas in Concord, I think they only had one supplier.
Yeah.
But then one of the big benefits, let me mention two that I can recall. One was just, again, service levels could be much higher because, again, it's the town serving the town, right? And the second benefit is that, after a certain relatively short, recoup period, it makes for a good cash flow positive to the town / department, right?
And so a couple of additional points. It's interesting that we half own our telephone poles, Verizon owns the other half, and it's a good point. This is a good time for us to get them all back, and it was, but a lot of infrastructure that would go in would piggyback off of existing maintenance that's going on right now, and so so it's complicated as a point, but it's also a good time for us to do this if we're already servicing those.
There's an electrical upgrade that's been planned. So the whole general service for distribution is being upgraded from whatever it was, like 33 some odd kV up to 100 something, I think. So that's just for distribution, and at the higher voltages, it's lower loss, so it's more efficient for the town to distribute that way. And then another factor we threw out is about half the town is underground, but the other half is over, I think.
I didn't know that.
Neither did I.
I think you mentioned that during the presentation.
Depends on whether you live in an area that's above ground or
The town had to cooperate and collaborate, whatever, with Comcast to run network connectivity underneath Trapello through Waverly and underneath the train tracks. And so, I don't know how they would feel about us just taking over those strands.
He actually had an interesting story about that.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be taking them over.
Yeah,
They still
are. They're ours, and the conduits.
Oh, the conduits, but not the
fiber.
The fiber in there now is.
Yeah. Well, we have our strands running through that conduit. Yeah, and they actually were kind of when there was maintenance to kind of get in there. So I think we're fine in terms. It sounded like we have what we need, where we need, fiber wise, and it's just then the equipping the poles with the runs to go to the residents.
See, I thought we had enough for town use, but now you're talking about putting town citizens on it as well. It's probably orders of magnitude more traffic.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could suggest maybe, since the presentation was
They're
recorded end to end, that
Okay.
and I will recirculate. He's the expert on a lot of this. We're kind of relaying.
So what I'll do is I'll recirculate the link to that talk, so any of you who weren't here can check it out. It's actually a really good presentation. And then the other kind of maybe item to put on, maybe for next meeting to discuss, was having watched it, do we want to have a position on it as a committee and put together a one-pager or something?
My recommendation on that is almost an echo of what we just had, which was that if we try to summarize it, we're gonna, miss something. And his presentation was actually pretty succinct, and he's got a written form of it as well. I think a short paragraph that just says, we've got this presentation, and as a committee, we endorse, or we
It has a lot of potential.
has potential, and just make a few pithy comments about it, rather than try to do a whole analysis of it.
Yeah.
I think would be helpful.
I think the value add for the selectmen would probably be, here's what we understand to be the pros, and here are some questions to your point, some areas where it might be.
It's super short, not like a long.
Yeah, no.
Again, the selectmen aren't going to read it.
Yeah, right. I agree.
If they're going to read anything, read his.
Right.
It's got a lot more detail.
Well, this is something that we might also want to almost ask Chris Roy's permission about. Right? Would you like us to do this? There are also advertising pieces that the light department puts out on different things. And if we said, if you want to publicize in your newsletter that you gave this presentation to us and it was well received, we're okay with it.
What's the approval path though? So to your
I'm
point,
sorry?
what's the approval path so we don't get ahead of it? Is he asking
So
the
he's-
selectmen for approval?
Right, well, the selectmen serve as the board.
As a
For
light
the
board.
light department. They sort of have two hats, and they go into special meetings. That's right. The board of the light department. So he's going to have to get permission from his board, which happens to be the selectmen. So, it sort of raises the issue whether our advice as selectmen on this matter is germane or even appropriate. I don't know how to read it, because we are, I think, empowered to give advice to the selectmen in their capacity as selectmen for the town of Belmont. Are we really being asked as a committee to give advice to the selectmen and be advisory committee to the selectmen for in their role as board members of the light department? Maybe it's splitting hairs too much.
I would actually say we are. And we are
perfectly
because,
legitimate.
we are because they are, in a sense. That's part of their responsibility, and we're supposed to give them advice. That's part of their responsibility. Or giving them advice.
So the only question,
That said, I don't think, reflecting on it, I don't think that it's a great idea to be giving them advice without giving the general manager of the light department a heads up on this.
I would prefer actually to have him back and give us the status and tell us how we help before we do anything. Before we do anything, honestly.
Okay.
Let me add just one thing to my answer to Cheryl's question. But the light department has its own budget, right, which is independent of the taxes we pay and anything else. I mean, its budget comes out of the rates we pay for electricity.
Right.
So as a budgetary thing, we have, I guess, little influence.
We talked briefly about that with him, and it did sound like it was an initiative he could probably fund out of his own budget.
Yeah, so I was just curious if there was a date that he had to make a decision whether he was presenting.
I think he's floating it.
I think the only time constraint is this upgrade that they're doing.
Right, because that's where it rolls into the cost.
Yeah.
Right, if they're pulling wire into the houses for electricity, there's very little extra cost to add a strand of fiber to that wire.
Business also is tied into their smart meter program, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Pulling fiber to the house.
Yep.
Oh, that's right, that's what it was. It was the smart meters, you're
Yeah,
right, that's what the fiber was for.
Sorry, distracting everybody. Also, Chris Roy is dynamic, probably isn't the right word, but very personable, very articulate. I mean, when I came into the meeting, he was sitting there and he said, "Hi, I'm Chris." And I'm saying, "Oh, it's nice that this graduate student is here to inform us about it." No. He was the new general manager of the light department, and he got up and gave what I thought was an extremely well put together presentation. And he's very convincing, and he's not of the model that one would normally assume for the general manager of the light department. Okay, he's a very
What I really
outgoing
liked about his
individual.
presentation is he's clearly thinking not just about how the light department's doing business today, but he's really thinking 20, 30 years down the road
Right,
of
right.
what
That's
is, it's not going to be like 30 years ago, and how do we as an organization position ourselves to be thriving and providing service to Belmont, far down. I mean, it was really nice.
Coincidentally, his hometown, president hometown, Harvard, is considering doing this.
Yeah. Okay. I recognize the lateness of the hour. So Glenn and I had met and kicked around some of these ideas, just the two of us. But I thought, it's January, it's a new year, and I think we've got two committees that are kind of going along, subcommittees that are going along a pace with their own projects. I think the 21st Century Government one, we're going to be wrapping up our work on the survey within the next 6 or 8 weeks. So it is a good time to talk about other ideas that we might tackle, and these were a couple that either I suggested or Glenn did, and thought we'd throw them out there and just get thoughts on it. Some of these come out of just stuff I've seen floating around, ideas or things that occurred to me or what have you. Some of them are things that have come up in the meeting, in our meetings before, particularly the town website, some of the issues around that. But I thought, are any of these ideas that strike our fancy as a committee and that we might want to either set up a subcommittee to look into, lump together, and do some more work around, or otherwise, take some action on?
And some of them look like they tie already into the subcommittee that you guys are working on, the remote
So like
station.
Town website would probably slot into 21st century government's, purview. Yeah, I think that's probably where we're going next.
Open data, wasn't that something that the town was already looking into at some point?
I'm not sure.
I thought that,
I think you can make requests to the town clerk for weird kind of data they collect, and you can get it. So there is some element of open data.
Is there a charge involved, like depending on the type of record?
I don't think, I put this on not in the sense of open records, like, public get access, but actually like an open data format, like a standardized format for all town data that would allow us to,
And I remember that it came up, but I can't remember exactly what.
I remember that it came up with Dave as well, but I don't remember what was said or the context.
So the point is, it could be quite interesting to at least explore where we are.
What other towns have done with this, and whether we're doing it. Again, some of these things like we might already be doing it.
Especially if you're installing smart meters and a lot more sort of utility use, for example, is now available.
Right.
Is open data a sort of term of art that's used in other communities? In other words, are we creating something that's brandy new, or is this...
I don't think I just made it up. I think it is a term of art.
I mean, open data, I know is a term of art, but I'm just thinking as applied to communities.
No. Yeah, I think that is the phrase that's used.
Worth thinking about.
Part of that would be related to that, though, might be the sort of next gen platforms initiative. I read a really interesting article about DC, the city. DC is not really a city; it's kind of a district. Yeah. But they basically moved all their bylaws to GitHub and use GitHub as the platform to manage changes, corrections from large scale, additions to small scale, like spelling corrections and, for their bylaws.
So change requests go to.
I just find that weird because bylaws don't change very frequently, and they
do?
But they usually require a large legal review and a deliberative body to then approve. Like, you're not going to just have some guy go like, "Hey, I'm going to check in my bylaw change."
That's what I'm saying.
No, but
the merge requests go to town meeting.
That's right.
That would be weird.
Because the process.
Exactly. Isn't that weird? I think that's weird.
Or we go to the bylaw review committee or whatever. Well, but really what you're doing is you're providing a platform for the process. First of all, you're making the process of modifying or proposing changes to the bylaws, you're democratizing it by putting on a platform.
I can see that.
Use, right? As opposed to saying, oh, well, you've got to call this dead letter office and leave a voicemail message or send them a
Fair enough.
fax,
Okay.
right? And I think that's the idea, not the back end of it, which is how the changes get made. You're right, it's completely bureaucratic and legal.
I think you also pointed out it's an easy way to fix things like spelling errors and things
Yeah,
like that.
that's right. Right.
So just minor corrections,
Like,
nothing to
hey,
really
yeah.
argue about most of the time. But,
Right.
you
Like
know,
the easy
you have a
example-
log- You have a log of them
Right.
and they've been made.
Here's the example of some guy who's like noticed that like in some bylaw it was like referencing like the wrong part, you know, some other part of the bylaws that was just incorrect. It wasn't the correct reference for what this was saying. He was just like, yep, this is, you should be pointing here.
Turn into a Wikipedia or bylaws.
So given the time, can we,
Yeah.
some of these ideas are, I think, very intriguing. Should we think about putting them on the agenda for next time so we can
Yes.
spend some more time on them?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just wanna
Should we pick three?
put one
Pick
quick thing in here.
Pick three.
All right.
Pick three.
Pick three. That we'll talk about next time.
That sounds good. Not, I mean, aside from fireside chat, municipal broadband, that's all remote
Correct.
meeting participation, that's all gone. So of the open data initiative, town website rethink, I don't think we need to put on. So open data initiative, next gen platform, smart city, smart town initiatives, and the tech resource center. Although isn't that, maybe that falls under, does that fall under your purview? Like,
Okay. The idea there was, is there an opportunity to do some sort of intergenerational volunteer service, educational opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I think that.
There's a similar sort of thing at Habitat where they have what's called the Habitat Intergenerational Program, where they get seniors and kids to, volunteer together to help out Habitat.
I love that idea.
and I know I've, in the process of doing this committee survey, I've had some senior members of very important committees sort of say to me, like, technology is a real problem with me. Like, it's a real obstacle. I really could use somebody who could kind of walk through some of this stuff with me, because, more and more of my committees are using these platforms, and it's hard for me. So
is this when you say tech resource center, you're talking about something that will probably happen at the Beach Street Center?
for the library.
And it would be an exchange from the teenagers.
Yeah.
Right, protection.
Yeah. Yep.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
Building
that sounds
on,
pretty
building
good.
on the suggestion of, carving out 3, I wonder if also we can kind of keep the subcommittee section reports kind of to a smaller time slot, so we have a sufficient time to talk through those 3. Because
Yes.
it seems like sort of a little bit of scope creep sometimes in our meetings that prevents us from getting to some of the things we want to spend a little more
Put
time.
higher on the agenda. We'll spend more time on it.
I wasn't the one who brought up the trash, man.
Well, I think another thing that would help if we assign time limits, so sometimes that helps my meetings, like if you say this topic gets 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then that helps us know, should we keep talking about it, or do we need to move on?
Do you want me to do that for next time?
We can try it if other
Not a
people
bad
think it's
idea.
helpful, but I don't want to
Yes.
overmanage the agenda. Okay, yes. That's strongly in favor.
So have we picked the 3? I was not clear.
No, we haven't.
We have that.
I've had discussion about recycle.
I would propose open data initiative, the
I like
Belmont
smart
High.
city.
Yep.
Yeah, that sort of would cover a lot of this.
Smart City and the Belmont High Resource Center. for the
The
next
thing
step.
about that, all right, is that some of that may already be happening down at Beach Street Center because they've, I think, they have a gentleman down there that teaches the seniors about computers, and I don't know to what degree he's incorporated the Belmont High.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think he is, but, so,
We can flesh out the
We can
audience
flesh
and
it
the
out.
pairing, yeah.
right. So in talking all these, it sounded like there were a few uncertainties, right, before we can have a larger conversation. I'll sign up for one of them, right, just at least find, make 1 or 2 emails or phone calls and just have a little bit more information to see the conversation for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
I don't know which one. I'll take the open data one, actually. I'd love to actually find out what we do for
Perfect.
data access.
See if Dave knows.
Yeah, Dave or even the town clerk, right? They've been doing big digitization projects.
Does somebody want to
Always
take
send
it
that
under their
over.
purview to do a little bit of research on Smart City, Smart Town for the next meeting?
What does that mean?
Low-hanging fruit, Smart City, Smart Town initiatives, so things that other communities are doing that Belmont might, that this committee might look into, consider for recommendation up the chain that are not hugely, expensive, complicated. That might leverage, stuff we're already doing.
Charlie seemed interested.
Well,
I would say I'm happy to do some research, and if Charlie wanted to, we can compare notes when we get back into the meeting,
Sounds
what
good.
you found and what I found.
I guess you mean smart town, smart city.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have a conversation about how best to do that.
I was gonna Google it.
Yeah, I mean, do some Googling around, read through some news reports, do some follow-up.
I think it's a very hot topic, so I think there should be a lot of stuff out
Yeah,
there. for us to-
for sure. Does that sound good? So Cheryl and Charlie? And I will, I'm happy to follow up on the Belmont High research thing and talk to Alice Melnikoff at the high school. Yeah.
But also touch base with the
And
Peachtree Center.
Peachtree Center.
now
I forget his name.
Nava isn't there now.
So
Who
do
is
I.
the contact there?
What happened to Nova?
I thought that didn't Nava and Angela move out of town?
Angela moved out of town, but I don't think I think Nava's still.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As
Okay.
far as I know.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Nava's still there, so I'll reach out to her. Okay.
By the way,
I just haven't been.
Angela's out of town, but he's still president.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's still president.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
The person that that Charlie was mentioning was Rich Berger, Berger.
Okay.
Yeah, he became an official sort of on the staff about a year ago, and his title is Technology Sharing Facilitator.
Okay. And of course, we're talking about this with seniors, but of course, there are non-seniors in town who might also need help with technology. So while the Beach Street Center is one possible location, flat room at the library is another one, or, so this is tech literacy is not something that's only in the senior population. In fact, I've done some classes with seniors, and many of them are very technologically capable. Okay. That sounds good. Only other thing is on the Honeywell smart meter issues. We got a briefing on that a while back, and I feel like we let it drop as a committee, and I'm not sure that that's the right thing for us to do. I think that we should. My personal feeling is that there should be some communication from us to the selectmen on this issue. About any concerns or questions that were raised by that presentation, and I think there were some. But I may be in the minority on that, so I thought I'd raise it with the committee.
If I'm remembering, I thought where we landed was we were going to make a recommendation to the Patrice and the Board of Selectmen that when RFPs were issued or RFIs that involve technology content, that Dave Petto be informed, because I think the concern we had there was that there's more technology content in parking meters and smart meters and building security systems and things like that. And if the procurements all go through their silos in the organization, there's no opportunity for Dave to weigh in on, gee, have you thought about X, Y, or Z with respect to this procurement? And I thought that was where we had ended up after our discussion, was that somebody
That could
was
be.
going to maybe go to Patrice and have a conversation with her about that and make that suggestion, or do something more formal in the way about, a letter from like that.
Yeah, that was my recollection as well, so we might want to check the minutes to see where we left the action item.
Okay.
But I agree with you.
I have some
we
recollection of that as well.
We should follow up with that. I agree with you.
So maybe to the extent that there's a communication, maybe less, not necessarily specific to that deployment, but just sort of say, we had this briefing, there were some issues raised, and going forward, it would behoove the town to involve Dave and, consider that many of these deployments have a technology, data security, data privacy, reliability,
et cetera.
data integrity questions that need more review by people who are knowledgeable. Yeah, okay, all right. So let's maybe for next time just double check on where we left that, and maybe we could, somebody want to take a swing at drafting some kind of a
I'll do it since I'll check the minutes and see
Okay.
what we did, what we talked about.
And then we could just review it next meeting. Okay. Great. Okay, and with that, I think just scheduling our next meeting and.
One question.
Yes.
Our annual report to the select or to the town.
Yeah, we gotta get that. Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes I don't know why we always seem to be on the wrong email list for that, the notification about that. I don't.
Was there a
I don't wanna
notification?
miss it.
I didn't get one.
So.
I mean, I just know because it's January
Yeah.
that, this is.
Like me.
Exactly. So maybe it's worth it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Year-end report.
I don't know if any of the
So Paul, if you want, I
current
could look
or
into
former
it.
chairs or
Could you?
vice chairs
Oh,
got
thank
such a
you.
notification. I didn't get it. I was looking for it.
Okay, do we want to set a meeting time for, do we want to get together next month? And like this, end of February, or do we want to push it to March, or what are people thinking? I mean, I know our subcommittee is going to meet in the meantime, so
When is the school vacation week in February?
I think it's usually the Columbus Day weekend, so it's,
It starts on the 18th.
I mean,
18th is
Martin Luther
President's
King Day
Day.
weekend. President's Day weekend.
Yes. Right, February 18th.
Yep.
Is President's Day, and
Yep.
then school vacation is that week, so it's 19th to 22nd.
So let's-
If we're concerned about trying to push out to the selectmen some recommendations that have come out of the 21st Century Committee, do we want to meet before school vacation to see what you might, not putting pressure on you, what you might have in the way of a draft report? Or is that too soon?
I mean, I think we could have something by the week of the 12th in February. It's like it's like 3 weeks.
We probably need at least, as a subcommittee, we probably need at least
2 more
two more
meetings.
meetings.
Yeah. So do you want to push it out till after that, like the week 26 or first week in March? I'm fine, yeah.
First week of March, just for your information, is RSA.
Oh, that's
I assume you're
right.
gonna be at that.
Yeah, I am.
Not this year. I'm not going this year.
God bless her. Lucky man.
That's pretty fine.
I would say then you're right. So we need to do it either the 12th or the 26th, like the 26th, 25th, 26th, 27th, or the 11th, 12th, 13th would probably be my preference. And I'm happy doing it that last week in February. If you want to do like the 26th or 27th.
I think the last week in February is better for me because I think we're going to be away the week of the 11th.
Okay.
I don't have it written on my calendar, but I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that's what
It
Janet
gives us a
said we
little
were
more
gonna
time
do.
as well.
That's the week my kids have off at school.
Okay. Does that work for people?
26th, we're talking about?
Either, I don't think we
I
picked.
can't do the 28th. I can do the 26th or 27th.
Either one's okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. Neither works for me. March. Well, I mean, don't.
How are other people with the 25th, 26th, 27th?
I could do the 25th.
26 and 27.
You could do the 25th?
I'm okay with any of those days.
Do we want to do a Monday? Can we do a Monday?
I could do the 26th. I'd have to miss something else.
26, good for me.
Is that the Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones?
It's a Boy Scout meeting.
Well, what about March? Well, March 5th is bad. So for you, RSA.
Well, March, because RSA, we have to do the second week.
I'm an assistant scout master.
Still master.
An assistant. So that's fine. I can miss it. So we could do the 26th. That's a Tuesday.
Yep. Okay.
10:30.
Yeah, 7:30.
Yep. And this is.
Do you think we could also set specific times? We got starting times at a specific end time?
Yes.
You loving all my ideas today.
Well,
You can probably tell one of my New Year's
if we
resolutions
put
relates to
the
time
topics-
management.
If we put time on the topics, that should just.
I will put time.
fall
I
out.
will put time on the topics. I think that's a
Well, like in a standard, like whether our meetings are gonna be 2-hour meetings or they 90-minute meetings, just it'll help, I think, planning. But even you, like you said, the agenda topics will help you plan.
Yeah, it's
Once you know
February
the time.
26th. Yeah. Tuesday. Tuesday.
We need that.
So do you think you can fit
I've got
the
it.
topics into an hour and a half call?
One of my work habits is we have like a few workflow programs. I'm trying to get 8 hours of sleep every night, which means I gotta be able to get home, finish my stuff, and get.
You wanna just
get
do
my 8
that?
hours of sleep.
So we can just do that.
See how I do.
Yeah.
Sneak it in.
It's harder than you would think.
Thank you.
You
It was a little bit of a sloppy ending.
I landed at the airport.
Do we want to plan on meeting at 6:30 on the
8
28th?
hours well.
Yeah. Okay, without further ado, I think we need to move to adjourn. Do you want to second? Okay, all in favor, aye. Thank you, everybody. Sorry it rang a little long.
Chairman can actually call the meeting after.
Is that right? Okay. This meeting is closed.
I've been using that lately, so.
Hey!
No.
We finally got a participant, but we're breaking now. The meeting's
No
over.
rush. No, it's just, I mean, it's done, right? This is it. I can actually do it.